because the messenger, whose mouth was tired, was not able to repeat it, the Lord of Kalaba patted some clay and wrote the message as if on a tablet. Formerly, the writing of messages on clay was not established. Now, under the sun and on that day, it was indeed so.
A competition occurred between two cities known as Uruk and Arata, so that the Emperor, King of Uruk, could send a letter to Arata. Writing had just been created, so the King of Arata was not able to read the letter, and Uruk was declared the best city. This is how the great writing system Cuneiform was created, based on the story in Merkar and the Lord of Arata. Although that's how I wish how things would have gone, the story of Cuneiform has much more meaning to it. Communication will not be the same without a writing system to represent the sounds and speech of language and keep a record of them. The cuneiform script transformed human understanding. Developed by the Sumerians around 3200 BCE in the ancient Mesopotamian civilisations, it was used for marking expenses during trade, communicating long distances, and recording history. The system was the most historically significant writing system in the Middle East and a frontier in the development of many modern-day writing forms. The first evidence of cuneiform traces back to the Sumerians at the end of the 4th millennium BCE, who are a group of people that inhabited southern Mesopotamia in the city-state Sumer in what is now present-day Iraq. It isn't known if the Sumerians were the first inhabitants of this region or if they even created the writing system. Sumer was one of humanity's greatest civilizations. Sumerians were able to farm on a large scale despite dry lands of the Middle East, with the advantage of settling between two large rivers in the region of the Fertile Crescent. Over time, Sumerians became better at growing crops with the help of technology like organized canals and plows. They began to domesticate animals such as goats, cattle, and sheep. Archaeological discoveries suggest that cuneiform was developed so that people could communicate long distance and trade. Cuneiform evolved from tokens made from clay to represent goods, to pictographs used for accounting like the tokens, to syllable writing in an alphabet that actually represented spoken words. Previously, clay tokens were used for counting and recording goods or transactions. Tokens in which scientists assumed they represented debt were stored in clay envelopes until they were paid. Some people would mark the token symbols on the envelopes before putting the tokens inside, so that the contents of the envelope would be understood. The markings on the outside became very important, and soon, impressions of the tokens were put on clay tablets with a pointed drawing tool. And no, not these tablets. The tablets continued to be used to record goods. This was the first sign of writing known and is still credited to finding a solution to the token system that was used for more than 5,000 years. Pictographic tablets from the ancient city in Sumer, Uruk, were the earliest written records of the Sumerian language. In this form of writing, a sign would resemble the object it represents. During this time, writing was only able to express basic ideas of objects, and they were never repeated. Early cuneiform did not use the function of representing social connections such as asking questions, expressing feelings, and giving basic commands, which is usually in normal speech. While numerical values were easily represented by pictographs, representing complicated names was much more challenging. This gave them the idea of using partial phonetic transcriptions. Phonetic symbols granted writing with the possibility to break away from accounting and allow the Sumerians to show grammar elements with phonetic complements added to symbols through logograms. Logograms were words that had drawn pictures to represent the sound close to the word desired. The University of Texas's website shows an example of this being the English name Neil being written with a sign showing bent knees like kneeling down. To write with cuneiform, the words had to be split up to its different sounds. Phonetic writing introduced the concept of syntax, the arrangement of words and phrases to form a sentence that makes sense. The Sumerian language had so many similar sounds, so usually some logograms had identical phonetic values representing different names like the words sun, bright, and day. This is known as polyphony. By the 3rd millennium BCE, the writing became more joined together, and the style of symbols evolved from being written in columns from top to bottom into general linear drawings. clay tablets were frequently used as writing materials, and sometimes stone, metal, or wood would also be used. It makes sense clay was used as it was highly abundant in the rivers of Mesopotamian cities in which cuneiform was developed from. The linear drawings were pressed into damp, soft clay with a slanted edge reed stylus, which gave the drawings a wedge-shaped or triangular aspect. This explains why the translation of the word cuneiform means wedge shape. The system was basically just different combinations of 3 different shapes: vertical wedges, horizontal wedges, and diagonal wedges. Cuneiform was mostly used by professional scribes who became skilled in Sumerian and other languages and had to learn many signs, though normal citizens could still read and write using some symbols.
The collection has mainly 2 types of tablets: receipts and writing exercises from the world's first schools. This receipt is the oldest item in special collections, which is over 4,000 years old.
We can understand the challenges of cuneiform from King Ashurbanipal's written complaints of understanding the system. The Sumerian writing system kept on becoming more complicated and used ideograms mixed with a lot more phonetic symbols. The system of phonetic symbols that express syllables known as syllabary got writing closer to spoken language. From the 400-plus cuneiform sites archaeologists reported, the script could explain almost any topic. The earliest texts made of cuneiform include religious, royal, literacy texts, letters, laws, maps, medicine, warfare, political text, and even cooking recipes. This includes the famous epic tale of Gilgamesh, the Enuma Elish, and many biblical stories.
We have such a rich collection that the whole of ancient Near Eastern life, in a way, is captured on these bits of clay. So we find out mostly about the king and the court and the so-called important people in society, but sometimes we also find private letters which tell us about daily life. So in fact, we actually have a really good angle on loads of aspects of ancient life.
The creation of phonetic signs also resulted in the script spreading into neighboring regions, as personal names could be written with signs. This was most evident during a period of increased contact with Mesopotamia. The cuneiform writing system began to expand outside Mesopotamia in the 3rd millennium BCE, when the country of Elam in southwestern Iran was exposed to Mesopotamian culture and acquired the system of writing. This was also true for many other Middle Eastern cultures who adapted the script into their own language, improved it, and had an influence on it based on their certain endeavors. This includes firstly Semitic groups like the Akkadians and Elbites, ancient Caucasian groups such as the Uwartians and Hurrians, and Indo-European groups, which include the Hittites, Mitannis, and Persians. The Babylonian Empire also became a great influence on Mesopotamian culture when areas began to be unified in southern Mesopotamia by King Hammurabi of Babylon, and they created their own form of cuneiform. Many of the cultures that used cuneiform faded away one by one, and eventually the system stopped being used. The writing in the Middle East shifted with the invention of the alphabet in 1500 BCE, and simpler alphabets became more common. After the fall of the Assyrian and Babylonian kingdoms in around the 7th and 6th century BCE, cuneiform was still used almost up to the time of Christ, which would be year 0. The latest known example of cuneiform is an astronomical text from 75 CE. During its 3,000-year history, cuneiform was used to write about 15 different languages. The changes that the cuneiform system underwent continued to improve the way spoken language was interpreted and resulted in many successful cultures and languages. The script provided a new pattern on which other systems were constructed from. It is believed that the use of cuneiform in the Middle East has influenced scripts in ancient Greece and Egypt's writing system. The ancient world of Mesopotamia and its inhabitants' way of life has been exposed to us with the little amount of information we are able to decipher from researching cuneiform.